All right, Abe, I think the first question I have is why does the New York area have the best pizza in the world?
So the old theory was it's the water.
Yes.
The New York water system is supposedly both toxic and delicious, uh, and that makes for a perfect pizza.
I will
But
tell you, yeah, because I will tell you that growing up in New Jersey, everywhere I go now and I eat the pizza, maybe aside from Italy, but when I eat the pizza, I feel some sadness that it's not that it's not that good.
oh yeah, it's like pizza and bagels. The New York City
Yeah.
area has it locked down. It's funny because like Montreal seems to have some claim to Montreal bagels, and every once in a while I'll have one.
Yeah.
Say I'll make a sour face. I'm like, this is not a bagel.
Yeah.
You guys are
I know. I have a friend from Toronto, and he claims a lot of the best burrito is in Toronto, Canada, or the best bagel is in Toronto, Canada. And I'm just like,
bro.
that
Yeah,
can't be right. That can't be true.
you are only showing how little of the world you have experienced.
Yeah.
That's it.
So thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, man, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks for coming back on the show. You're one of the few people that when they pass by Austin and they message me that I actually leave the house for.
Oh my God, I still remember that. I have fond memories of being behind the shirtless biker as I waited for coffee.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. When you come to Austin, people, there's a big vibe of, be yourself, dress how you need to. So yes, it's very. There's probably a shirtless biker in line with us,
Yes,
waiting
there
for
might be a
coffee.
shirtless biker watching today.
Yes, and he's probably like a tech person, making 300K, working at Facebook or something.
Oh, for sure, and he's laughing at this.
You never know who you're going to meet in Austin, which I kind of like.
Yeah, Austin is super interesting. You know, besides you, I have a bunch of friends down there. There's a vibrant Amazon community, but there's a vibrant
Mm.
everything community down there. So it's possible to lead a very diverse life that is not siloed in one business.
I play volleyball once a week, and I had a friend visiting. Um, and when he's after the game, we sat down and I was like, "Hey, meet the team." And I'm going around the table, and every single one of them has like is incredibly interesting professional life and personal life. Like one person managed like a 1 million person email list for like a e-commerce brand. Another person was like a Fortune 100 CMO type person. The next person, is, just only does a little bit of time in Austin because she goes back and forth to Peru. And it's just like all these interesting people. So I think like that's what is most attractive about Austin, that you really just get people doing sort of whatever they're called to, which creates for a lot of vibrance.
So I gotta say, you should be appreciative that you have the type of personality that can appreciate when you meet different people doing different things.
Yeah.
A lot of people will be in the same situation as you, and they will just hear other. They'll hear like
Yeah.
those same six stories you just said, and they'll just,
Mhm.
oh, he does something different from me. And that's where their brain stops working. So
Yeah.
to think of, to like think that somebody's doing an interesting thing and to find value in it and to have curiosity about it, it's absolutely not a common quality. Like a
Yeah.
lot of times I post on social media about a random thing I saw, and somebody said, Abe, you live such an interesting life. I'm like, your life is just as interesting. It's just a question of if you open your eyes to it.
Some of the most successful people I know do two things. Number one, they are very curious. They're not afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid to not know things, and they're not afraid to show it, which I think is so, so, so powerful, especially in our space where it's impossible to know absolutely everything. So to be a perpetual curious learner and not be afraid to look a little foolish, if you ask a question that, they don't worry about, oh, people will think I don't know the answer to that question and think less of me. That doesn't really process in their heads. And two, they're really comfortable with themselves, meaning like someone doing something different doesn't take away from me. Or like if someone says something other, I don't have to question like, oh, should I be doing that? Like, why are they doing that? Like, I don't need to put them down in order to
Right. And
lift myself
you don't
up.
have to puff yourself up in a different way and maybe look clowny doing it. I see that a lot also. But yeah, knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know is absolutely an underrated skill. I can tell you there have been so many times where I'll be in a classroom or in a place where people are talking to one to many, and I will hear the same term 6 times. I'll raise my hand to ask what that term means, and everybody around me will have a sigh of relief because nobody knew what he was saying. I was talking
this
to
just happened.
yeah.
This just happened yesterday. We were on a call. Dan Head was presenting something, and like everyone on the call, there were like 30 people on the call or so. Everyone on the call was like, cool, any questions? And Chris Rawlings, one of the most knowledgeable people in our space, was like, could you actually go back to that slide where you had the spreadsheet and like break that down one more time? I need a little bit more time to process what that was. And I was just like, damn, like I also wasn't 100% on the spreadsheet. Like, thank you for asking that question. And everyone, then like more people were more comfortable to ask questions. And I think like Chris Rawlings is like an A++ person. So there you go. Right. Like
it's part of what leads you to being one of the big brains. You absolutely need to know all the building blocks in order to understand the big picture. And the better you know those building blocks, the better you know those foundations, the more it can guide you in whatever you want to do. You know, that's, I know we haven't been talking anything Amazon yet, but I do a bunch of content, and a lot of times I'm talking to audiences and they're asking me questions. Inevitably, I'm answering a question in which somebody saw a YouTube video for a certain process or technique or strategy. They implemented it without really understanding what's involved, and it led to disaster. And they didn't understand their own product well. They didn't understand what idea was behind that technique or strategy. And without knowing the building blocks, you don't know if that's going to work for you. It even goes back to Ad Badger in a certain way. You know, I know you don't talk about it a lot on the podcast, but Ad Badger is your baby. And as an Ad Badger user, one of the things I always try to keep drilling in on is, what is the Ad Badger idea? You know this. Besides being able to go around all the screens and click on things and do things, what's the way Mike's brain thinks it should be used?
Right.
And I really feel that for any software, and I've said this before, but for any software you want to sign up for, you should understand how the founder thinks about Amazon and how they think it should be attacked. Because if you think one thing and they think a different thing, and they're the programmers, your actions are very likely to not get the results you want. So if you think big changes are needed to bids, and if you think that, and if the designer or programmer thinks small changes are needed to bids, you're going to be living a life of frustration and trouble tickets, or opposite.
Yeah, I think asking those questions, you know, trying to ask how people think about things, like, oh, you know, you said on that webinar this thing or that thing or whatever it might be, taking time to ask that person, hey, like, what led to you making that decision? Like, did you try the opposite, and what happened when you tried the opposite? So like asking people like how they came to those conclusions, I think can be really, it's like, that's the juice. Like that's the meaningful thing, not necessarily the end result. And this is one of my core tenets about digital marketing in general, or sort of like learning anything. And I think that's part of the reason why people tune into this podcast, because I believe it so deep in my brain that I could pull up an advertising account, tell you about it, why it's so successful, look at the structure of it. You know, they have this much broad match and phrase match and exact match. They have this much sponsored products manual versus keyword targeting, product targeting. You do this much sponsored display. You know, they tap into DSP over here. They do all this stuff. I could tell you every single nook and cranny in a 5-hour episode. And then if someone were to listen to that and go do the exact same thing with their products in a different niche, in a different life cycle of the business, in a different timing. Maybe this account matured over the last 5 years prior to COVID, and these other brands, like now they're brand new. Like understanding the factors of what made something actually successful is so insightful. It's why people love the book, like Good to Great, because it tries to understand what were the factors that led to success that even the company didn't even know that they were partly to. Even what kinds of things were just happening to them, and what kind of things did they do? Like, what were the factors? And I think like you get a lot of well-intentioned people sort of sharing their tips based on their experience without sort of asking like, oh, like part of the reason I was successful here was because I like got so lucky in picking a niche that had such immature competition. And then I sort of had a cheat code on where I didn't need perfect structure. I was able to get away with, a $5 bid on an auto campaign in 2019. And it was just fine because like I couldn't miss. I was just like, I had the cheat code on. Every shot that I took landed in the basket, right? Like that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, it's definitely true. It's funny because some people are not self-aware enough to realize how much of their success was them and how much of their success was the moment. There's always a moment and there's always an opportunity. Even when the news says that times are rough, there are absolutely people making their fortunes in those times. Right. So it's possible to do it, but you also have to recognize what's happening around you. But I think the bigger part of it is also you really have to have a good understanding. I mean, just to say it a different way, you have to have a good understanding of what's happening around you and the way things work. So inevitably, whenever I talk about Amazon, whenever I talk with clients or with brands, one of the first things we have to do almost to reset the conversation, because people really just want to dive into technical details. My ACOS is this, or my thing's sliding, or my product is this. There will always be some flavor of the issue. And before even diving into the issue, I always take the time to explain how Amazon wants things to work. And that 5 minutes of explaining almost always fills in the blank for what's not working for them. And I don't know if you want me to go through that now, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Do it.
So Amazon has an idea of what the ideal shopper experience should be. The ideal shopper experience should be that someone goes to Amazon.com, someone goes to the search bar, they type in a search for the thing they're looking for. After they hit enter, they're going to be presented with a bunch of results, all of which roughly match what they're looking for. And they should click on somewhere between 1 and 4 products. One of those 4 products should resonate with them and they should want to buy it. They should get that product in 1 to 3 days and they should love that product. That is the ideal purchase experience for Amazon and for the shopper. Anything that we can do to fit that experience will help your business. Anything we're doing which doesn't fit that is going to take away from your business. And ideally, besides that happening, Amazon wants to make as much money on the way through as possible. So they want some of those to be clicks as opposed to organic. And they'd like a higher sales price so that they can make more of commission and fees. And they'd like the inventory to be closer to the shopper so it costs them less to fulfill it. All of those things are all true, but that's behind the scenes. And in the end, the shopper experience is what has to be supported. So almost always, by the time I get through that, the issue is diagnosed. So either your product doesn't match the search, or something about your listing is not convincing the shopper to go and make the purchase, or you have a high return rate, which results in you being penalized in your CPCs. Something about that process is hurting you. Your main image might not resonate with a shopper. It might not be different enough to encourage a click. Your price might be off, or you're not close enough to the top of the page to be one of those first 4 clicks. There are scenarios where positions at the bottom of the page or even positions on page 2, 3, 4 can work, but that's not really the ideal Amazon purchase experience. It's counterintuitive, But if you're not one of the best four, one of the first four, page 4 is actually better than page 2, because one of the buyer behaviors is people who look at a lot of options will go past page 1, past page 2, and as the results get way worse, your relevant listing that shows up on page 4 is like the lifeline for them, a salvation, that they don't have to go back to page 1. You are so much better and so close to what they want that they're buying you on page 4. That is still the very tiny number of shoppers, but it is actually a valid way to grab business.
Do you think in the future, hyper-personalization on Amazon search results, meaning Amazon will know what income bracket someone is in. Amazon will know if you generally buy the lowest price options, mid-priced options, or the highest price options, that search results will begin to be hyper-personalized. So if I've always been purchasing the most expensive products with the highest ratings, they're going to serve me the most expensive ones, and they might serve somebody else the cheaper ones. They're more likely to buy something with only 4 stars filled in because they're really they're value shoppers. They're trying to buy the cheapest one possible and just satisfy the need. Do you think that will happen in the Amazon search results?
So if I think it through, there's 2 things at play. Number one, yes, the more relevant the search results can be, the better the buyer experience will be, for sure. But there is a different factor, and I don't know enough about psychology to know how much of a play it is, but buyers sort of want to feel like they have choice and options. So if they always buy the premium product, if they're only shown premium products and they are never shown the deals or the value play or the cheap option, that might make them feel like they're being restrained in their purchase journey. So you have to have a reference point to feel like your product is the best. What's your reference point? The cheap stuff. So you see all that cheap stuff, you see the better product. The cheap stuff is your anchor for a premium product. And the same thing the other way. When you see the expensive items, you feel like you're getting a deal for 1/3 of the price. If you only see the thing at the lower or at the higher price based on your history, you are losing something in the experience. I don't know how to quantify it. I feel like it's definitely a correct thing, but I don't know how much of it plays in. Does that make sense?
It reminds me of what you just described, reminds me of the TikTok algorithm, where the TikTok algorithm will know that the person really likes basketball, and it does not serve every single video to be a basketball video. It knows to insert some other stuff so that by the time that basketball video comes around, you just had a dopamine hit, and then it takes the basketball videos away for a little bit, and then it gives it back to you. That what you just described reminded me of perhaps one of the.
So they're in tune with it already.
It's so interesting because it's self-reinforcing, meaning like the more you are on it, the more you're training it, the more you're training the algorithm because it knows how long you watched every single thing. So that's sort of like hyper personalization. I feel like even to what you just described is really interesting, like that hyper personalization. It reminds me of there was someone I know, they sold a premium product. Their product was maybe 50% higher than the rest. It had exceptional reviews. And because it was so much more expensive, they had such an abysmal time trying to break into like better organic rank than position 10. Like they were like midway down the first page. They couldn't get there. And my conclusion, and everything looks perfect, exceptional conversion rate, exceptional everything. And my conclusion was that because they're priced so much higher, Amazon doesn't want to serve a product that's only going to apply to a certain fraction of the market all the way in the top few spots. So it sort of suppressed their organic ranking. And I mean, it makes sense, right? So Amazon's sort of measuring like who clicks on what, who buys what, and just simply more people are clicking on other products because they were cheaper and they didn't want to deal with that more expensive one. But I feel like if they begin to sort of personalize results more, then they might know that people are more likely to buy more expensive products. So maybe if that product that's in position 10 currently the non-personalized search result will eventually bubble up to maybe 3 or 4 if it can identify a premium shopper.
Yeah. So depending on I guess, especially when it comes to premium products, to some extent, right now, what you described leads into the reality that Amazon is not always the best place for very premium products. So when it comes to luxury watches, for example, or luxury handbags, or like things that are expensive, shoppers don't necessarily trust Amazon as the authority in those spaces. They actually buy products which are many thousands of dollars all the time. The price is not the issue. It's the authenticity of the experience. So for those products, and for this person that you're talking about who sells a premium product, there might be channels which are better for targeting his ideal shopper. There might be communities online which are more in tune with the thing he sells at the price he sells it. There might be influencers and reviewers who, when they get their hands on it, will do a glowing review of the finish and texture of the product, and that will lead to 150 units moved in a minute.
Yeah. I know a lot of parents that don't want to buy their young kids stuff that they'll eat, that they'll put in their mouth off of Amazon because they're worried, like, is this a legitimate product or not? Or is this going to be some counterfeit thing?
Is it really BPA free? I don't really trust it.
Right. You know, that kind of thing. Can I really trust it? So I think that's it's a sort of the knowing who the customer is and like what to say to them. That's always going to be valuable, Amazon or not. Yeah, those kinds of things are really valuable.
We have a long way to go. We're at the point where we can identify these issues and describe them, but the tools for managing it effectively aren't there yet. So this person with the premium price product, the science and the data isn't clear that he shouldn't be there, or it's not clear of what the right way to market is. So we have to develop that knowledge, and it has to get out there. There are people who definitely have unlocked it, but they're certainly not sharing things yet. Not too much.
Yeah. Speaking about sharing things, let's talk about something that could potentially impact the Amazon space, which is just came out. We're recording this May 2nd, and I think just in April, FTC announced. Let me actually read the headline. The headline is FTC announces rule banning non-competes. FTC rules on non-competes has companies, employees, contractors, everybody's worried.
Yeah.
In some ways. How do we, let's sort of first define this. A non-compete, you know, you work for an Amazon brand in a particular niche. A non-compete would say something like, don't work for our competing companies. Like, don't compete with us. Now, that is no longer the case. So what's your first reaction as to how this might impact the Amazon space?
So I'm an employer and I run an agency, and I have.
This is not hypothetical.
No, this is not hypothetical.
This is real.
It is real, and it actually it has been an impact for me even in the past when I was a strong seller. So within my business, there are pieces of my business that I consider my secret sauce. The words I use when somebody asks a question, and the words I teach my team to use when somebody asks a question, or the mix of software that we use to get the results we get, or the way we set our pricing, which is unique to us, even though there's a general way that people price. You know, our specific way is specific to us. There's 100 small details that are our thing and that give me my position in the marketplace. I wouldn't call myself a behemoth. I wouldn't call myself a market leader, but I have my own little space. And I invest a lot of time into training the people that work with me, in teaching them, in mentoring them, in supporting them over the time they're with me. And in exchange for that, I feel like I would like to know that they will be with me reliably, as long as I as long as I'm supporting them and taking care of what they need, I would like to think that it will go both ways in terms of the investment of time and support. With this, now, I don't really enforce things with a non-compete, but I definitely can understand that somebody who has put what I have into a business and into employees will not want that to go and immediately for 75 cents an hour that somebody can hire away a team member of mine and learn all of the things which are internal to my company. I wouldn't want to do that to a competitor, not strictly like that, and I wouldn't want it done to me. So there is definitely an issue in which things which make companies special are more possible to be lost by those companies. I don't like that.
Right, because when you ask the FTC why did they do away with non-competes, they actually came up with a quote, there'll be enhanced innovation and competition. According to the FTC, there'll be 8,500 new businesses each year due to the removal of the protections against doing it, increased employee mobility, a more dynamic market. And in terms of protection of trade secrets, they say trade secrets should still be protectable to safeguard intellectual property theft, I guess you can say. Which is, if you're an Amazon brand, you might have a lot of trade secrets, how you manufacture something, the composition of it, your suppliers, the way that you package, the way that you ship, all of your vendors, information about how vendors operate, like all of this stuff. It's really, are you feeding a potential, competitor who's going to outrank you one day?
100%. I mean, I don't love it. Now, at the same time, I don't love it from my perspective. I definitely know that this rule came about from employees being abused in the world. There is an entire class of businesses that absolutely abuse employment law. And if you're a bartender at a large chain and, TGI Fridays, and I don't know if TGI Fridays does this, but if you're a bartender at a large chain that serves alcohol and even if you get laid off by them, they won't let you work at another place as a bartender. They'll say you have trade secrets, which is ridiculous. Right. If you're literally the janitor, they won't let you be a janitor somewhere else, as though you have special knowledge of how to mop the floor. That's absolutely abusive. It's not appropriate. And so much of that happens that it led to needing to create laws like this. I absolutely understand it. I also know that there is a reality in which the best thing for an employee, the best thing for a career person is probably moving company to company within their career. If you work for one bank and 5 years later you move to another bank, in order to take you, they will pay you 50% more or 100% more. Do that 4 times in your career, you will make a lot more than staying with bank number one and getting cost of living increases. That's it. At the same time, there is the reality that trade secrets are trade secrets, and the special sauce is the special sauce. So I feel like a rule like that should have come with nuance. So one level of nuance might be that this should apply to hourly workers as opposed to people who are given actual employment contracts at certain rates. That's an indicator of the type of work they do. One other thing, and this is all hypothetical, the FTC is certainly not listening to my ideas, but like one of the things that I think is very common sense is if you want someone to not work elsewhere, you should have to pay them their salary for the entire time you don't want them to work somewhere else, unless they find a job that you let them go. So if you say you can't go there, well, you can't fire them either. You got to keep paying them for that entire time. And there are people that do that. They'll pay out a full contract for 36 months, even if they let the person go after 12, just not to let them go somewhere else for the next 24.
Wow.
It has to very much be worth it. But if it's worth it, it is worth it. So the person that has the keys to the kingdom, the person that has all the passwords, the person that knows all the details, that's the person that's worth paying, even if they're not in your office every day. Things like that could make it more palatable, I think.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of trade secrets, I think one interesting thing is AI. And I think that I almost feel like there's a energy in the internet right now where there's some gatekeeping around particular ways that AI is being used internally at businesses, because it's unlocking brand new avenues, which if you're an early mover in those avenues, you potentially have early mover advantage. So, I'm reminded of, you told me one time when you went to Prosper, there was a challenge that I think you won. You were the victor of this. It was like create a brand and a product and a listing in using AI in like under 60 minutes or something like that. So along with that, it's in more and more places and it's showing up everywhere. So have you seen, has there been any from that exercise? Because the exercise was a couple months ago. Have you seen AI get used for that purpose in a real world environment where you're using it to actually design the packaging and the listing and absolutely everything top to bottom? Have you heard more of this where people are creating, a product a week just purely with AI, right?
So I can tell you, I definitely think it's happening. I actually experienced this yesterday firsthand. One of my clients, one of the clients I work with is the exclusive Amazon distributor for a manufacturer of outdoor products. And as part of being the only distributor of this large brand, he has insights into what sells on Amazon. He has insights even into things that are selling in adjacent subcategories, and he has discussions with the manufacturer about bringing new products to market. So what happened was, a couple of weeks ago, he had a discussion with the brand that I was part of the conversation, in which we discussed 2 or 3 extensions to a product line. And the brand was interested. They said, make a presentation for us in which you go into the details. I understand everything you said during this phone call, but I want something that I can sit down with as a presentation and look at it. And I got on a call with this seller yesterday. We actually made a presentation using ChatGPT to create packaging for this new product based on the style of the existing brand. So we just went into ChatGPT and we said, we are a manufacturer that makes this product already. You can see the listing at this web page. We want to create a similar product that's like these other competitors. Make me a sample product based on what our first product looks like. And ChatGPT nailed it, or the DALL-E that's built into ChatGPT. We were able to create exactly a visual example of what we were thinking of. It actually gave us more ideas than what we had in our head originally. And it gave us the information we needed to show that this brand can compete in this similar space easily. So people are using it, and it's very intuitive. It's very smart. You can use plain language to get the results you want. If you can say it in words, you can get results that are amazing. And the better it gets, the more that people are going to be empowered to be creative and to go out into the world and do interesting things.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating. We're sort of in the world of like technical marketing, I sometimes call it. But as you go into sort of like creative agencies where they're coming up with branding ideas, how many hours does it take them to come up with a branding idea typically? And now you can have a branding idea in seconds. And imagine if you just spent 10% of the time that it used to take. You take that AI generated thing and you iterate on it and you iterate some more. And you ultimately get something that could be, number one, you'd have more options. Number two, you'd have, faster feedback loops. Like there's so much opportunity there. We were talking before we hit record on a negative side of AI, which is you go online, you think you're talking to a person on social media, and you're just talking to a bot. AI on social media, tell me why it's your favorite thing.
Oh gosh, I don't think you're going to get the answer you want.
Mhm.
Um, I really am not a fan of AI in social media. There are so many people using it to generate content and to generate interest. And it's an interesting dichotomy. On one hand, for people who are active and people who are thoughtful about the content they create and people who want to have actual discussions about things in the world, AI is terrible. I can go on LinkedIn and I can give my thoughts on a thing that's happening, and 7 comments will be genuine and thoughtful and add to the conversation. And the 8th will very clearly be from AI because it has bullet points and emojis next to the bullet points and certain words that people don't use in speaking.
Mhm.
You can tell.
Mhm.
And like, come on, really? On the other hand, I absolutely know that marketers are using AI to do exactly the thing that I don't like. They're doing it at scale and they are generating an enormous amount of business. So just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not a business generator. I run
Yeah.
ads for plenty of things I would never allow into my house or put in my body. And all I can say is if there's a market for it, there's a market for it. So the same thing with the AI. If it is a marketing tool that's effective, do the thing that's effective for you. But I don't know
Listen,
how to isolate myself from it just yet.
you know, going on the computer, going on and talking to, I mean, I don't know if you saw it a couple of months ago. This was months ago. There's like AI Kim Kardashian, like sponsored by, this was like an official Meta thing, like from Facebook, which is like you can interact with like an AI version trained on like Peyton Manning, and you can like talk to Peyton Manning's AI and like talk about the game and like talk about like what sports you're playing and like if he's got tips for on throwing a football. The difference there is like it's known you're talking to an AI. What I think is peculiar is like this whole concept that the internet could eventually be like for bots by bots, like for AI by AI, where like everyone's posting AI generated content, all the reactions are AI generated, and then it just sort of self propels. Like your AI is trained on what gets the most AI engagement, and then it could just continues like a snake eating itself. Uh, I was listening to a podcast. They were talking about like the dead internet theory, where basically like the internet ceases to exist for humans because it's just trying to appease whatever algorithm that gives it more of the thing that it's trying to get. So like clicks, views, and attention. Um,
Yeah, it's crazy. After I remember, I discussed this with you, I think yesterday or a couple of days ago, and I looked it up afterwards. And apparently, if you go according to this theory, more than 50% of the content on the internet right now is generated by AI or bots or some sort of software.
mhm.
It's not generated by an actual person doing an actual thing. So we're already the minority at this point. And the
Mm-hmm.
question is, at what point does our minorities become so small that we're irrelevant?
Right. Yeah. Like if you look at, Google Analytics for your website or something like that, it'll tell you a number. But then if you go into other kinds of analytics that do not filter out bots, the amount of bots visiting any website is far superior than any human visiting the website. So like Cloudflare will tell us how many times a page was accessed at all by human or bot. And, it's like a factor of 10, like 2,000 people, it was like 20,000 bots were just checking the page, pinging it, indexing it, checking it again. It's wild.
Yeah, I see those sometimes also. I don't live in the world of website statistics, but every once in a while I look at it, I see all these numbers, I get intrigued by it, and then I get put off because I have no idea what to do with it. Like somewhere in there, there's something actionable, and I just can't wrap my head around how to make use of it.
Yeah. I'm sure someone somewhere right now is trying to figure out a way to AI buy products on Amazon, review them, have them shipped somewhere, and like rinse and repeat somehow to sort of stack their reviews. Some kind of AI review bot.
Oh gosh.
I think Yeah, somewhere for sure.
The truth is, it's possible to do that so cheaply that I'm not sure bots are there yet in terms of efficiency because of the way that reviews get monetized. I actually met somebody that is a prominent product reviewer, and when they get a product that they have an uncomplimentary review of the product, they'll actually offer a kill fee in which they, for $50, they won't post the review. They go, so if you want, I'll post this review for free, or I won't post it for $50. Here's a review and let me know what you want.
Sure. Oh boy. It's like a review troll.
Not for nothing. If the product is not great, I would love the opportunity to get both the feedback and not have it posted. As long as you're proactive about it.
Right. Yes. Well, Abe, we've covered a broad range of topics, and I hope that people enjoyed it, because I think we have such interesting conversations together. So I think it's important to, periodically zoom out, ask yourself, like, what's going on the internet and e-commerce, on Amazon in general.
I agree. It's just, instead of being focused, looking at the world with a wide lens sometimes is really eye-opening and interesting. I love these.
Yeah. But yeah, I put these types of podcasts in the Joe Rogan category. This is just like the Joe Rogan style podcast.
My goal, I very much have fallen off of my own podcast. I'm exactly the average podcaster. I made 7 episodes in 2020 and then dropped off completely. My goal is to sort of get back into it at one point, but I love the Joe Rogan model in which he'll talk for 2-3 hours, and it's absolutely gripping. I mean, I feel like we're sort of at your typical length of episode now, but I also feel like we could go for forever with this. We could go for a while. It would be super interesting, and there would definitely be people interested in just listening and listening and listening as we open up our brains to the world.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Well, speaking of opening up your brain, where can people watch you open up your brain?
Right. So I open up my brain pretty often these days. And I also actually run a business in which I run advertising for Amazon brands. In either place, you can find me talking about both things on LinkedIn. If you look for me with Abe Chomali, I'm on Facebook also under my name. I've got my website, which is xpstrategy.com. And even if you type abechomali.com, it does actually come to my website also. So if you can spell my name, you can find me on the internet.
Yes, and that is Chomali.
Your pronunciation is perfect.
Yes. Abe, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Can't wait to have you on it again in the future. Everyone else, I'll see you next time here on the PPC Den podcast.